Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Money Monday, the weekly webinar from GP Cog featuring Paul Johnson with the jazz hands over there. Say hello, Paul. And I am Belinda Ray, also of GP Cog. Oh, we forgot our backgrounds. Oh, my goodness. I'm sorry, everybody. I know we'll still get you out of here in 15 minutes, I promise, but we can't do it without this. Okay, there we go. If you have questions as we go through here, please pop them in the Q&A, the chat, either or, we will find them. And we, as always, will mail the slides and a link to the videos after the webinar to anyone who has registered or attended. We do this weekly to connect our members with regional resources and funding opportunities. Anything else, Paul, to introduce here?
No, I think you nailed it. I can transition right into my first topic.
All right, let me get the screen shared for you and we'll get you up there. All right.
So I will lead off today talking briefly. It's actually two things. The Greater Portland Immigrant Welcome Center, and I'm going to give a brief overview of something called the Indus Fund. And the reason why I am bringing the Greater Portland Immigrant Welcome Center to Money Mondays today is they have recently essentially ramped up efforts to create a business hub. And so with that business hub comes a lot of technical support for new Mainers and either their startup businesses or their existing businesses. As probably all of us know, access to capital, access to money is always difficult for new Mainers. And frankly, it's difficult for all new businesses, particularly when they're just starting out. There's so many resources out there. And sometimes it feels like there's too many resources. You don't know where to start. You don't know where to go. You don't know who to talk to. And the Immigrant Welcome Center, located right in downtown Portland, is now making efforts to have a business hub that has just more specific offerings for their clients. And if you want to go to the next slide, Belinda, I have put two live links here. The first one is just goes straight to an Eventbrite. I believe this is their first crack, the business hub. And it's a beginner's guide to writing a business plan. It's in person, and it's geared towards new Mainers. I'm sure everybody's welcome. But it's actually a sit-down class where you can learn how to actually write a business plan. Because as you know, a lot of times the first step to being bankable and access to money is a business plan. And depending on who will look at that business plan, that might change the way you approach it. Banks tend to want something more detailed. Maybe friends and family don't need a 30-page document. All of those things are discussed at this event. And then I assume they're going to then go ahead and do logically follow the next steps, and then ultimately end in receiving financing, which leads me to the Indus Fund. Just quick plug for the Indus Fund. Again, this is a live link if you want to click on it. It being Money Mondays, this is a fund that is run by Seaport Credit Union. It is made specifically for immigrants, new Mainers, and they offer low interest micro loans. I believe the largest loan is $10,000 that they offer. It has an interest rate that is fixed at 3.5%, I believe, over 5 years. So it is a great way to test drive a business idea or to launch a business idea, or perhaps just get over that little hump of saying, hey, I've gotten to this certain point and I'd like a little bit more money. So I encourage you, if you are watching the webinar today and you have somebody that walks into your office or reaches out to you, use these resources, particularly if they're a new Mainer. It's a good place to know if you direct them to these two resources, they won't get the runaround, so to speak, or redirected. These are two direct sources that you should be able to say, hey, try this, and then it'll be readily available. So that is my half of Money Mondays. Actually, I don't do a half of Money Mondays. I do like a third. Belinda does 2/3. So here comes the main event. So Belinda, it is all yours.
Not at all, Paul. I think people are tuning in to see your handsome face most of the time anyway. Yeah, should you hire a grant writer is the topic today. And I am covering this because there have been so many opportunities coming out. These are the funding opportunities, the grant opportunities that we've covered with Money Mondays so far. And somewhere in June, I started ranking difficulty on a scale of 1 to 10. And eventually I added this beautiful little color chart. So if we look at these opportunities that we've presented, some of them are in the blue, which is great. Those are 1, 2, 3. A lot of them are 4, 5, and a fair number are above 5. So when you get into those higher difficulty grants, those are the big funders, the really big money, but they're also really difficult processes sometimes. So how can you get the 5 and ups? How do you go after them? And sometimes it might even stretch your staff capacity to go after a 3 or 4. So you might want to consider hiring a grant writer. You can contract with a grant writer for lots of things. You can have them help you find grant opportunities, do the research for you, tell them what your projects are, have them find good opportunities. They can supplement your staff capacity if you have some folks who can do some grant writing, but you need a little extra. They can guide you through the whole process, or they can just do the whole thing for you. But of course, for that, they will need your involvement to some extent. You do have to hire people, you do have to pay people, but it's a small investment that can really pay off. How much will it cost you? That is going to vary widely. There are a lot of different people who do it. There are independent contractors, so a one person, a freelance writer who does grants, you could hire. You could also hire a whole consulting firm who might specialize in particular kinds of grants. Rates range anywhere from 35 an hour for someone who's really probably just starting out in the grant writing field, up to $175 an hour. And that's going to be for some really tough grants. Some folks will charge you just by the hour and only charge for hours worked, which of course, if you've hired a contractor that way, you know can be great, you know can get out of hand if suddenly the project takes a lot longer than you thought. Some people will use these hourly rates to give, to kind of go over the scope with you and then establish a fixed rate contract with, or something with a not to exceed, like they'll work at an hourly basis, not to exceed a certain number. Rates, as you can imagine, with most things, reflect someone's experience, their track record. People who have been in the business more will charge more, but they also might work more quickly. So you have to kind of weigh this all. And as I wrote here, even if your person is not charging a lot, they might be really good. Everybody has to start somewhere. They have to get customers. They have to build a base. So they might start out at a low rate and be an excellent grant writer.
Belinda, can I add one quick thing?
Yeah.
So the only thing I'd add is if you do use like an engineering contractor there for other things around town, there's a possibility they might do grant writing for you for free because they typically have some sort of financial incentive for you to actually receive the grant. There might be, I'm sure there's other contractors out there, but just don't be afraid to work your contacts sometimes. So.
Excellent. Thank you, Paul. When you are looking for someone to hire, costs will vary wildly, and there are a lot of factors. So if we assume your grant writer or consultant is charging $100 an hour, if you're looking at a 1 or a 2, these are pretty easy grants. That might cost you, $500, $750, up to $1,500, not a ton to hire someone to do that. If you get to the middle ones, 5 to 10,000. These could be large grants. They could be 6 figures, could be state and federal opportunities. And then the big ones, the 9s and the 10s, these are the ones that often are involving a lot of maybe infrastructure. So you need engineering plans, you need cost benefit analyses. Those things can take upwards of 150 hours for people to do. So you might spend between 15 and 40,000 on that. But remember, if you get the grant, you could be bringing in millions of dollars. So 40,000 sounds like a lot, but if it's bringing in 12 million, it's a pretty fair trade. A big factor in how much you're going to pay is how prepared you are. If you just call in a grant writer and you don't really have a clear project in mind, and you have to go around with them for hours and hours and hours, and then they have to ask you a lot of questions, that's obviously going to eat up a lot more time. So how prepared are you? Do you have a clear project, a clear scope in mind? Can you talk about it? How well can you talk about your town or your project Do you have data? Do you have demographics? Can you explain the need for the project? If it's engineering, do you have plans, blueprints, pictures? The more prepared you are, the less legwork your grant writer has to do, and the less they're going to wind up charging you, either if they work hourly or if they're preparing a scope for you. If they understand you already have done a lot of the basic work, they'll charge less. So some key things to know, and I should add in here, and maybe I'll put it on the slide before I send it out, Paul, what Paul said, that if you are working with an engineering firm, check to see if they can help you find funding opportunities. But some other things, as I said, costs are going to vary depending on the difficulty of the application, your preparedness, and the rates of your writer. There is value in preparing a grant, whether you win or lose. After you go through a grant writing process, you often find you have a more clearly defined project. You're better prepared to go for future funding opportunities. You're better prepared for your project. So you can get a lot out of it, even if you don't get the grant. You wind up with a lot of valuable materials. When you're looking to hire someone, you need to find a balance. You need a rate you can afford, but you want someone who has a track record that matches the opportunity. So probably if you're going for one of those 9 or 10s, you're not hiring a beginning grant writer. You want someone who has a track record, and you can ask people as you get ready to hire them, give me some examples of grants you have won. What money have you brought in? And people that have been in this for a while will have hundreds of millions of dollars of examples for you. And you also want to find someone you can work well with, right? Because if the communication's not there, you don't wind up with a good product, and it also takes longer. So find someone you think you can work well with. Important to know, grant writers cannot work on contingency. They cannot ethically, by the grant writing professional associations, say, oh yeah, I'll write your grant and I get 10% if you get it. That's not, you can't do that. You gotta hire somebody, have a contract, they write the grant. They're not getting a bonus if they get the grant, none of that. And then just in terms of timeline, you want to be able to give your grant writer a good 4 to 6 weeks to work on it. So you get them in, you talk about the scope, they plan it, they tell you what they're going to charge, and then they're going to need 4 to 6 weeks really to kind of get it all together and have it reviewed and be ready for submission. So you don't want to hire a grant writer and say the grant's due next week. That's probably not going to happen. And if it does, you're probably not going to get the grant or get much out of the process. So that is what I have. I also do have some resources for you. I talked with the 3 people on the left before putting this together, and they gave me some good information to use for the presentation. On the right, there are grant writing courses. So you could contemplate having your staff complete a micro-credential or the UMaine grant writing certificate program. And that might be a really good investment for you. So you can check those out too. And hopefully all of these things will help you to be better prepared to go after those big grants. So that's what we have today. Paul, anything else? And you want to close us out?
I don't have anything else. I hope everybody has a good week. And as usual, we are 1 minute early.
Woo!
We'll get back to your productive Money Mondays, and we will see you next week. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.